I first met Joyia at a photo shoot we were doing. I was modeling. I don't know if you can believe that. But Joyia was modeling right before me. So I got there a little bit early, and this music was playing, and I was just like so like entranced by the music. And I think after a while I must have asked, like, oh, like, what is this? Like, who's playing this? And she says, oh, it's my music. I was like, oh my God. Just like blown away. And then I think we just like instantly connected. Like the synergies were obviously like instantly there. We've been like kind of like working together, like bouncing ideas off each other for a while. And so it's really cool that like the first time I can do an event for my show that she's the featured guest. But yeah, Joyia, come and join us. How are you feeling today?
I'm good. I've been excited all day, so it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for HQ for putting this together, and the music done. So yeah, super excited.
I usually like to start all my interviews at like a sort of easy spot. Do you remember when music became a part of your life? Like, do you remember, usually, because I know it's like usually like an early memory. Do you remember like how early you can remember that it became important or it became like present?
So the first time it really became important and present that I remember was when I was 6. My parents put me in church choir because I would always be singing around the house, and there's a ton of baby videos. Like I used to really like watching the Teletubbies for some reason. And so I would sit on my grandma's couch, naturally. So I'd sit on my grandma's couch and just kind of make up songs on the fly just about them. And my parents were like, you know what, let's put her in the children's choir at church, see if she really likes doing this. And then I was around 10, and they were like, do you want to do this? Like, my parents never forced me to do anything. It was like, what do you like to do? We'll support you, which I'm really grateful for. But yeah, so I was like, yes, I want to start music lessons. So that's when they put me in vocal and piano lessons. And then pretty much ever since then, it's been a huge part of my life.
I also really want to start at the name Joyia, because I know that's like, it's important, not only is it important because it's your like artist name and it's like the name you record music under, but it's like a name that somebody else in your life has called you for a long time. Maybe you'll tell us about that. Yeah,
so it's a question that I get a lot, but it's a name that I've been called since I was born. So I'm half Portuguese, and Joyia, yeah. One clap. All right, for the other one.
That's sick, though.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm half Portuguese, and Joyia, the original spelling is actually Joya. And in Portuguese, it translates to gem, but in the context that, you know, you're calling somebody a gem, like, oh, that girl, she's a gem. And then so a lot of Portuguese people, they use it to say, like, when they're calling their kids, like, sweetheart, come here. So my grandma always used to call me that, and then it just kind of rolled through the rest of my family. So then my mom started calling me that, and then my dad, even though he's not Portuguese at all, started calling me that. And your
dad's Trini, right?
Yeah, my dad's Trini. So yeah, I'm mixed up everywhere. Yeah, so my dad started calling me that, and yeah, it just became my name. And then when I was picking my artist name, I think I might have gone through like 5 names, because I went through this point where I didn't know who I wanted to be as an artist, and then I was like, I want to do this name, I want to do my real name, I want to do my short and real name, and then I was like, why don't I just call myself the name that I've been called for my entire life? And then it just stuck, and luckily, I mean, it's not something that I had to get used to because my parents have already called me that. It's just I know the certain tone when my mom says it when she's mad. So that's when it's a little different, but yeah, no, that's how it came to be, yeah.
I guess it's funny, through the process of like organizing this and putting this together, we found out that you already had this connection to, like, I know that you, so I don't know if everybody knows that Joyia is a Ryerson grad.
Soon to be next week.
Oh, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah.
But you had this connection to the Ryerson Music Den program already.
So, funny story, he's the man, the myth, the legend. He's actually in the room right now. So I took this class in creative industries in my program. We got to choose the industry that we wanted to study, so naturally, I chose music. And we had this class called The Business of Music, and that's where I met my prof, Stephen Ehrlich. And everybody say hi to Stephen. He hates it.
Hi, Stephen.
He hates it when people point him out, so since I'm graduated now, I'm going to do that. So he was teaching the Business of Music class that I was in, and there was Business of Music 1 and Business of Music 2. Now, 1 was just your overview of the music industry. Here's what legally happens. Here's how to read contracts. Business of Music 2 was, okay, let's separate the class into groups. You guys are going to throw your own show. You have to pick the artist. You have to pick the venue, and let's just throw you into it. So I was in second year, and one of my friends was in the class, and she wanted me to be the artist. So that's the first time that Stephen had really seen me perform, and at that time I was a little bit more of a DJ. We'll probably get into that later. But at that show I was kind of DJing, singing, and he was like, you know what? Like, I really see potential in you. So that really gave me a lot of faith in myself. And then the next year I ended up being in the actual class, and I helped throw the show. And then I realized that, you know, working on the back ends of things, like, I love being in the industry, but, you know, seeing the other artists on stage, just like I had that burning sensation in my chest. I was like, I need to be there. And then since then, there's been a bunch of people that are like, hey, Steven, can we use Joyia as an artist? And he's like, no. She's already done it. No. So, yeah, and then Steven, you know, he kind of started this music den, and then he hired me again when I was still DJing. I DJ'd the first opening party of the music den. It was great. Yeah, and then everything's just coming full circle, and now I get to be the first performer in their official space, which is really awesome. So, yeah, it all comes back.
That time that you were the artist for somebody else's project, you were the performer for their show.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the first time I think that was the first time you had to brand yourself as like an artist, right? That was like the first time you had to sort of like put together like how to present yourself.
Yeah. So that was, that was still around the time when I didn't really know who I was as an artist. I was still Joyia under just Joya. If you're wondering why it's IA, it's because I mixed it with my middle name. But it was still when I was Joyia without the I. And I was still more of a DJ. And because I hadn't really known who I was as an artist until then, I hadn't really thought about branding myself per se. So everybody in the class, or the group that was working on me essentially, they were like, hey, let's do some branding, let's do this. And then they put together a logo and everything. And that was the first time that I had ever really considered, you know, the full umbrella of Joyia, which is something I hadn't considered before. And it really put kind of my business hat on and was like, you know what, you should start trying to actually do this and actually release music and stop half producing your works and start fully making songs and performing more. So yeah, that class really, it really opened up the possibility of actually doing it and kind of put that like determined hat on.
You put your first project out is it January, right?
Yep.
How are you feeling about it looking back to January now? I mean, it's been like a few months now.
It's honestly, everything is a lot different. That project, it opened up a lot of doors, and it's connected me with some awesome people, and just to have something of your own that's out in the world for people to hear. I mean, it was as exciting as it was also really scary, because you're in this spot where you're like, okay, this is my first project. I'm releasing it for the first time. These are all my emotions, all my feelings. You don't know how people are going to feel about it. You don't know if people are going to like it, if they're not going to like it. And the thing is, you can only make a good first impression once. So that was kind of the scariest part to me, was getting over that hurdle. And since then, I mean, the reception of the project has been amazing. A lot of people seem to like it, which I'm so happy about. But since then, just having something out in the world and performing at a lot of events since then, it's kind of shifted my mentality to, oh my God, I hope people love it. Like, I don't know if this is going to be good enough, but I hope people love it. It shifted my mentality from that to something more of, this is who I am as an artist. I know this is who I am. And some people are going to like it. Some people are not going to like it. And that's totally okay, because that's what music is. It's subjective, and everybody has their own musical tastes, right? So I may not like rock music, but somebody out there may love rock music. So my music is more...
Are you saying you don't like rock music?
No, I like some rock music, but I'm not like, no, I used to sing in a cover band, actually, and we did all classic rock, so I know me some Zeppelin, yeah. But yeah, it shifted my mentality to, and people always ask me, like, do you still get nervous before shows? Sometimes, maybe a little bit, but I think that feeling of nervousness goes away, because it's just, that music's been out there now, and when you're finally confident in what you're putting out and what you're making, it's just, you don't need that gratification from other people, because you already have it within yourself. So I think that's the biggest thing that's changed. Yeah, snaps, girls, snaps. You good? But wow, I'm super quotable right now. This is great.
Well, there's something to be said, I think, about when you like make something, and then you put it out there, and it's like not necessarily just yours anymore.
Exactly.
It's like open for interpretation. And it's like you have to. I think there's like a process if you make stuff to getting to a point where you feel comfortable putting stuff out, because it's no matter what. Once it's out of your hands, it's like
it's out of your hands, and it's people's. And I mean, the lyrics that I write, they're based on my own experiences, my friends' experiences, just life in general. And sometimes I've written songs and people come up to me and they're like, oh my God, this song, it affected me this way because this happened to me. And I'm like, that's totally not what I wrote about. But the fact that you could draw upon it and it affected you in that way, like, yeah, that's amazing. So everything's interpreted differently. My main goal as a musician is to make people connect with it. Whatever that way may be, everybody's life story is different. So how you see that song is going to be different for everybody. And I think that that's the great thing about it. But yeah, it's always scary putting your own work into the world. But once you do it, and once you just find that confidence within yourself, it becomes something that, you just become excited about and excited to do and keep working on and keep developing.
You've been booked quite a few times, like since Legends came out in January. You've gotten quite a few bookings at like showcases and like bars and like a bunch of stuff. I was wondering if you could tell people about this opening set you did for Epic High at the Phoenix.
Yes.
Because that was like, it only got announced like a couple of days before they were supposed to perform. Like, it was really late.
Yeah.
And then it was like, to me, it seemed like a really random booking. Like, I was like, who's Epic High? And, like, why do they want Joyia as the opener? I was so confused.
So I was equally, when I got approached by the booking company, I was also kind of like, who is Epic High? But then, I looked into it, and I don't know if you guys have seen the K-pop, like, revolution that's happening right now in the world, but Epic High is... It turns out, when I looked into their socials, they are a huge band from Korea, and each of these band members had over millions of followers, and I'm like, oh my God, what did we just sign up to do? So we get there, and the whole process before, I mean, it was crazy. They were going back and forth with their agents and their management because they had to approve of whoever the opening act was. We literally got confirmation that we were going to play 2 days before the show. And they wanted a full 5-piece band, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if all of our band members are going to be able to come, because it's like we had told people that, we have this chance that we're going to open up for this big band, and we're like, keep it open on your schedules just in case. But then, everybody was expecting to get confirmation like a week before maybe. So they're like, we probably don't need it. So if we need to book other stuff on that night, we can. And then 2 days before, I'm like, guys, y'all need to clear your schedules for Thursday because this is happening. So our drummer ended up being the only one that wasn't able to make it, but they were still okay with that because there were still the 4 of us. So it ended up being myself, Hamlet, which is made up of one person is my producer, and then the other person is his brother who plays on guitar and also does vocals, and then our sax player, Aubrey. So we got there, and we were expecting to play as an opener for maybe like at the Phoenix, which is a pretty big venue, for maybe like a quarter of a room of people, maybe half. When we got there for our sound check an hour before, there was a lineup of people like around the block and all the way down, and I was like, oh my God. We walked out to play our opening set and the entire room was packed. So yeah, so that when people ask me when I still get nervous
it's like
before
600
shows,
people or something.
Yeah, when people ask me if I still get nervous before shows, I'm like, not really. I was shitting myself a little bit when I walked out on stage. But once we started performing, we sang the first couple of notes and the crowd was just like really feeling it. So it ended up being an amazing night. And just to think that we played for a sold out packed room at the Phoenix, it was crazy. So
Yeah, people that would have never known your music beforehand. Like,
No.
had never heard it going in there.
No, and it was super funny because they're a K-pop group. So Aubrey and I, like, Aubrey's Jamaican. I'm mixed, as you know. And then there's Hamlet. They're both Chinese. So we were playing to this whole group of like Asian people, and it was so funny because after we came down from the show, there were like just like a bunch of girls that were like, "Oh my God, Hamlet!" And they were like, "What?" And they're like, they'd never experienced this before, and they're like, "Oh my God, do we have fans?" Yeah, but it was crazy. It was crazy.
What do you think you learned from that experience? If there's like sort of one thing that really like sticks out now, like in that process.
Always be prepared and always have some songs in your mind that you kind of know just in case. And the other thing that I really learned was it's not a bad thing to be vulnerable and to be in that position. Like, yes, I was really, really nervous when I walked out on that stage, but one thing I learned is just, you know what? Once you're there and once the show is there, it's going to happen whether it goes well or not. So you just have to make the best of the experience and hope that the people like your music. And if they don't like your music, then you're just jamming to a whole set up there by yourself and it's a great time. So there you go. But yeah.
I think that's so funny that you'd expected that there was going to be like 20 people and you walked out and there's like 600 people.
Oh my God. I was like, I get home at night and my mom and dad were like, "Oh honey, like how did the show go?" Like because my parents have been pretty much to almost every show that I performed at, which is amazing. I love them.
Her parents are like her biggest fan club. They're like her like number one, like diehard
Oh my God.
fans.
Yeah. They're like OGs. Like you want to talk day ones. I walked out to this like one of my shows, and they had dropped me off at sound check. They're like, "We're gonna go home, chill for a little bit, have something to eat." I'm like, "Cool." They come back, they're decked out in Joyia merch, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" And everybody's like walking in, and they're like, "Oh, isn't that one of the artists?" And my dad's like, "Yeah, that's my daughter." That's my daughter. And I'm like, "Oh my God." So yeah, my parents are super head ass, but I love them for it. And yeah, I got home that night and they were like, "How did it go?" Just expecting it to be another one of, the small event. I'm like, I showed them the picture because we did one of those things where we like took the picture on the stage with the whole crowd behind us because I'm like, I'm going to do this because I don't know when the next time it's going to happen. So I'm going to do this now. So I showed them the picture. My mom was like, "Oh my God." She's like, "My daughter's famous." I was like, "Okay, not yet." Like, relax. But
Famous in Korea.
Yeah. There you go. Next morning I wake up, added to a whole bunch of Korean Spotify playlists. No, I wish that didn't happen. But
You need to figure out what the most popular social media is over there, and you need to create a Joyia page and start just like blasting the music out.
yeah, it was actually, you know what? It was really funny because we got added to the Facebook event page for Epic High, and literally like an hour into it, one of their fans posted in the Facebook group, and they were like, oh my God, Joyia should join them on stage and do this song with them. And I was like, I'm already getting requests? Like, this is crazy. But then I talked to the booking agent, and they were like, you're going to have to prove it with their management. And I don't think, like, management is super, like, stringent. I'm like, okay. But the request was there, so it was pretty cool.
I want to take it back to your parents for a second.
Yes.
Yes. It actually blew my mind when you told me this, that how long was it ago that your family moved from like a house in Brampton to like a condo on Bathurst?
Yeah.
Like
so
how long ago was that, and how did that happen?
So it was about a year and a half ago. I was born and raised in Brampton, suburb kid, all my life.
There's like quiet claps over there.
Yeah, I know, like quiet stops. It's like everybody wants to,
People like snapping like under here.
Yeah. Like nobody wants to say they're from Brampton, but they're gonna be proud of it still. And I'd lived in the same house like all my life, and then, my parents just wanted a change, but they also did it every time somebody comes into our house. My dad's like, we moved just for our daughter. I'm like, okay, back up. And then I'm like, you didn't do this just for me. Like, my mom was all into I want to live in the city and do things and whatever. And it's funny because we never go out now. So, but yeah, it was a sacrifice for all of us. But I mean, one of the reasons they said, we're willing to do this so that you can work on your music and be where you need to be and, go to the events that you need to go to without having to come back at like 4 or 5 in the morning because...
And you were commuting to school too. You're commuting from Brampton to Ryerson for like maybe like a 1-hour class.
Exactly. So sometimes my commute would be longer than the actual time that I was in the city. So it was a lot. And once I did move here, just the amount of you say that you're gonna have so much more time, but then you just get so much more busy, and then you're just always doing things. But yeah, it was about a year and a half ago, and we all moved and we all made a sacrifice, and I'm super grateful for that because my parents are the type that have always been, as I said before, they've just always been supportive and have given me the resources to do what I needed to do growing up. Like they put me in those music classes and they helped me with that. So now anything that's been after that, like the recording process, like paying for all the mastering, taking care of all of the creative direction and vocal coaching and whatever else I have to pay, they've offered to help with that. But I'm like, you know what? This needs to be me now because I'm working hard on this. Like, this is the career that I want to build for myself. So anything from now on is going to be me because it's like, I'm super grateful that they've helped out so much up to that point. But now it's like, I want to invest back in that and show them what it's done for me and like what they've done for me. So it's like, it's kind of like now at this point, I want to pay it back. And I know that if I say that to them, they would be like, we didn't do this for you to have to pay it back to us. Like, that's not what we did it for. We did it because we love you. It's kind of like, I know that and I appreciate that. I'm so grateful for that. But I just want to show them what all of their hard work and kind of investment has done and where it has taken me. So now I want to, everything going forward, I want it to be, my work and my money and whatever I need to do to get it there.
Were they driving you out to those studio sessions in Mississauga too to record
the
Legends
time.
EP?
Well, no, I got lucky because my dad works in Mississauga, but he works from his office is in Sauga, but he works from home. So whenever I needed to go to the studio, he's like, "Oh, great! Like I can go work in the office, so it's fine." So I got lucky. But if I needed to take the bus or whatever, it's what it is.
I can imagine, as I know, like as an independent artist, you take like a lot of the roles. You're like your own booking agent, and you're your own manager, and you're your own graphic designer, and you're your own whatever.
Yeah, man.
Joyia made these, by the way. This graphic right here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. It was a stock image, but thanks.
How how did moving from like a house with like a backyard and like do you have a garden in your house?
At my condo right now?
No, at the house back in Brampton.
Oh my God, we had so much grass.
Like how do you as like
So much
when
grass.
you go back into like the songwriter
Yeah.
role, how does moving from a house with a backyard and like nature and whatnot and free space to move around, moving into a condo with your parents where it's like you're always around each other, always they can't just like go step outside. Like what does that do to the songwriting part that you still have to fill that role at the end of the day, you know?
Right. So in terms of parents and being all together and being all in this enclosed space, when you do get in fights, which did happen when we first moved into the condo, you can't just, go isolate yourself anywhere. But
In a corner.
I went to one corner, my parents went to the opposite corner of the same room. No, but on one hand, then it puts you in this mental space where you're like, okay, I can't go isolate myself, so I'm going to go write a song about it because that's the only thing I can do. So it helped my creative process, I guess, in a sense, in that way. But, the difference in being in a house, you really don't know how much you love and appreciate nature until you don't have it as easily accessible to you. Like sometimes just, working in a studio all the time, I love being in a studio and like I love being behind a board and just like in it and recording and everything. But it's funny actually, when we were in the studio just this past Monday, we took a break to just go outside for like, it was a nice sunny day outside, like the temperature was beautiful, and we just went outside and sat by the grass on the table, and we just took like a nice 20-minute break and just sat in the sun and, had some snacks or whatever. And then we just came in and we were feeling so refreshed and ready to go. And it's like that little outdoor break, it's so important to just be able to go outside and feel some sunlight on your face. And you don't realize how much of an impact that has until you really don't have it anymore. So that's definitely been, a little bit of a challenge with the whole moving thing and everything, but you got to pick your battles, right? You can't have everything. So it's just a matter of making the best of what you got.
I'm wondering if there's any advice that you would give to that Joyia that did that project with your friends, like back when you did that first show and you were like first branding yourself. Is there any advice that sort of in the last 6 months or so that you've gotten, that you've learned from this whole process of releasing your first project and doing all your first shows and being your own manager and all this stuff? Is there anything that you would get, like advice you would give to that Joyia, like from a couple years ago or a year and a half ago, whenever that was?
My advice to her is there is no boundary. So when I was that Joyia, I was convinced that I was going to be a DJ producer that did a little bit of singing. Now, just to give it a little bit of context, when I was growing up, I was in church choir, I was doing music lessons. When I had first started writing music, I envisioned that I was going to be kind of like an Ed Sheeran or an Alicia Keys, that acoustic singer-songwriter, piano on a stage, just the instrument and I. Then I discovered electronic music, and I said, oh my God, I'm going to be a producer DJ, and that's what I'm going to be. So then I learned production, I learned how to DJ, and I did that for a while. And when I was doing that project, that's essentially the mindset that I was in. I had told myself that you have to be in one box. Like, you have to find your identity, and this is what you have to be. When I fell out of that a little bit and I got into making the music that I do now, it's kind of like I still do the singer-songwriter thing. When I'm writing lyrics and I'm in there and I'm composing a song, it is just me and the instrument. But then it's like, okay, let's get this to demo stage. So learning all of that electronic production, and so learning how to produce and learning the DAWs and learning how to record and engineer yourself, it really helps when you're in that stage and you want to make a demo, or you want to bring something to your producer, or even when you're just in a recording session and you're working with the producers and you can use that same language with them. it helps so much just being able to communicate your ideas. And, so that way there's no back and forth. It's like, what do you want me to make this sound like? It's like, I can tell you exactly what we need to do and we can just do it. So learning that production and then, actually singing again, because when I was doing all that production, I was so focused on doing production that I wasn't singing that much anymore. So that Joyia that was performing there thought that you can only play one role. You don't have to just play one role. If you still love producing, you can still produce in a different genre. Like, producers don't just make EDM, which is what I thought back in the day. So it's like, if you still want to do that, you can. If you want to, have some fun and DJ a party sometimes, you can. And if you want to throw that all into one, which is what I do every day now, if you want to play the instrument, if you want to sing some crazy vocals, if you want to write your lyrics, if you want to do some production on your own track, you can. And that doesn't have to be limited to one genre. I mean, the genre that I make right now, it's just what comes most naturally to me. But do I still do vocals sometimes on some house tracks? Yeah, and sometimes it's hella fun. So you don't have to.
I want to hear those demos.
All right, I will. Yeah, I made like some dark tech house that I still have in the vault. So
what?
Yeah, I still make some tech house sometimes. It's fun, but yeah, you don't, and it's refreshing to be able to have those other outlets, because sometimes when your head is stuck in one genre and you're producing and stuff, you can get really like demotivated, and things may start sounding redundant. But sometimes taking some of those other musical influences and bringing them into one track can just help you see it in a whole different light. So yeah, I don't know, what was I, 20 to 19-year-old Joyia, I would say, don't give yourself a boundary and don't put yourself in one box, because you can do whatever.
You're only limiting yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're only limiting yourself, and when you limit yourself, you limit your output, and there doesn't have to be a limit to your output.
I think we're getting to the time where you should tell people what's next from Joyia, because I think it's like Legends EP was like the sort of the focal point for a long time. Like you were promoting it really heavy, and I think it's like the weather's getting a little bit warmer. It's getting nicer outside. What does that mean for like new Joyia?
That means somewhat of a less emotional Joyia. She's still emotional as hell, but with like a faster beat now. So, yeah, there's gonna be a few singles dropping this summer. My producer and I, we've been working together for the past 2 years, but we've known each other for like 8 years, so we're practically like family. We're going to be doing some collab stuff that we're going to be dropping, and then we actually just made the full track list the other day. I'm going to be dropping a full album. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I'm going to drop another EP, and then we looked at the track list, and I'm like, nah, this is enough for an album, so that's what we're doing.
It's funny, when the only time I went to Quarry Studio, when I went there, like you told me about it, is sort of like the center for Hamlet, like that's sort of like where they create all of their work. And when I walked in, I noticed that there was like there's 2 whiteboards that had like the plans for the next little while, like what you guys are working on, and it was all Joyia stuff.
Yeah.
That's like all that he is, like all his attention is just on working with you and like creating new sound with you.
Yeah, well, he works with a lot of people in the city, and he's one of those people that's just super modest about what he does. And he says like, like I'm an okay guitar player, like yeah, I'm pretty good at keys. Meanwhile, he's just like a mastermind behind everything, and he can just hear things and put things together that you wouldn't think go together. And he says he's okay at guitar, but he pulls one out and starts shredding. I'm like, yeah, I'm okay at guitar too. Meanwhile, I'm playing like a G chord. But yeah, I've been really fortunate, but it's just one of those things where, how you said when we met and the synergy was just there. That's what happened the first time Quarry and I had a session together, and we just showed each other our music. It was just it was really in line with what we wanted to do. And he showed me a beat that he had, and I just instantly started writing on top of it. And that beat was Legends. Yeah, he showed me that song the very, very first time we just sat down together and talked about music. And I started writing to it. And then within, I think, like half an hour, I had written Legends. So ever since then, it just happened to be like, let's try to make this a weekly studio session. So every week for the last 2 years have been a studio session. And it's just been, creating as much as we can, and then all of those things just amalgamated into what we have now. So
yeah, all the blog posts say that you just like came out of nowhere, you like emerged from the shadows or something like that. Basically. But like yeah, it really was like 2 years of work.
And it doesn't, like, when you're doing something you love and you're working with awesome people that you can just hang with, because that's the thing about something like music. Whenever you're doing something creative, you really, really have to love the process, because it's a long process. And if you're in a situation where you're working with people that really understand you, but at the same time push your creative limits, and also that at the end of the day, you can just be friends with and hang with and, like laugh with, because humor is really important when you guys are getting really tired of each other after 8 hours and like you hate each other's ideas.
I feel like that's with anything.
Yeah, exactly. So
8 hours, 8 hours with anybody, I feel like it's too much.
Or doing anything. So if you're going to be with somebody for 8 hours, like doing something, then you have to be able to laugh with each other and at each other, right? So, and that's just, so it's been 2 years, but it doesn't feel like it's been 2 years, and just the ease, like when you've been working together for that long, you learn what makes each other tick, or what, inspires one another. And I mean, working with Quarry has been awesome, because it's just one of those things where a lot of the times we're just on the same wavelength. And like, it's weird sometimes. Sometimes I'm thinking something, and then I look at the screen and he's already done it. And I'm like, get out of my head. And then sometimes I'm singing something and he's like, dude, I was thinking that in the car last night. And I'm like, great. Like, that's great. So there's been just like a lot of weird moments like that where we just finish each other's musical sentences, I guess you could say. And so it's been a long haul, but it doesn't feel like it. And it's been a really enjoyable one. So.
Okay, well, I'm glad you could be here tonight. I'm glad everybody could be here tonight. This is fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can we have another hand for Joyia, please?
Oh, my God. Can we have a hand for Drew Yorke, please? Yeah.